When I first spoke to Barbara Cleary's family, they were fed up.
Discharged with no discharge planning, no family contact, literally just you're back out in the street, and she was still manic.
Her rights have impeded her right to get well. Her rights are killing her.
She'd been trapped in a vicious cycle. 6 years of jail, psychiatric wards, homelessness, all too brief recoveries just because she's unwell. When bipolar disorder's mania takes over, she can't see that she needs help. She stops taking drugs that keep her stable and ends up with nowhere to turn. Very early in the research for this story, I was hooked. This woman is 74. She'd had a normal life, and the systems we've got aren't working for her. Right now, Barb's finally getting help, but she wonders if anything's really changed for other people like her. She thinks the only difference in her case is that her family went public.
I don't know what they would have done if you hadn't have been on the scene.
Barb's brother, Michael Cleary, reached out to me first. I'd reported on a homicide where something unusual happened. The defense and the Crown Attorney, who works for the province, got up in court and said Ontario mental health care is broken. By this time, Michael had decided to step away from Barb's struggles. After 6 years, he was resigned that nothing would change. So when he read that assessment of the system, it moved him.
I just had to respond to it because something has to change.
Soon I was talking to Barb herself by phone from jail. She was doing well, stabilized again. And she and Michael gave me consent to go over her entire medical and legal history. Before 2018, she had no criminal record. She'd been stable for 15 years, did end-of-life care, raised 4 sons, became a grandmother, volunteered. But then her bipolar I disorder got worse, and the change was dramatic. More than 20 sets of charges for minor offenses, 14 hospitalizations lasting 3.5 months, being released still sick to resume the cycle on the street. Why? Her rights. The same rights we all have, to choose to accept care or not, even when we're unwell, even if our families are begging for an intervention. And because according to the Canadian Mental Health Association, there isn't enough community support to help people before they end up in jail.
We don't have sufficient supportive housing across the province. We don't have those early intervention, preventative mental health and addiction care. And so we are almost trying to treat people once they've already been involved in the system, which can be quite difficult.
The day after the first story about Barb went up, I headed to court to see her plead guilty to her latest charges. Michael told the judge she had nowhere to go, that she needed somewhere to stabilize. But Barb insisted she'd be fine and was released. I talked to her in person for the first time right after she got out, and I could see up close what her brother had been telling me in recent days, that she'd become unwell.
Oh, I feel grand. I totally expected to go back to OCDC. I thought my family had deserted me, but I spoke with them last night, and they're all in favor of what I'm doing. Mommy's been on the journey alone. I'm going to freaking complete the journey by myself.
For Michael, it was time to let go.
I've done everything possible now. I can't do anything more, so I have to step back and see and take care of myself, basically. And that's what I'm going to do.
Michael told the judge Barb wouldn't last 2 days. He was wrong, but not really. She lasted 6. Barb was picked up for going to a bar she'd been ordered to stay away from and resisting an officer. We spoke by phone when she was back in jail. This was a couple weeks later, after her mania had passed.
I don't remember being discharged. It's becoming worse every time I get manic with my age. They shouldn't have let me out, but they don't care. They just put you out.
In early May, Barb pleaded guilty again and was released. This time she wasn't manic, but she was scared and homeless again, so she went back to the hospital and they kept her for 6 days. From there, hospital staff and the Mental Health Association helped get her into an assisted living facility for seniors. Barb was calm and self-aware during our interview in her new home. She wishes the courts could recognize her illness and handle her differently, but she also knows that's difficult when she's refusing help.
I don't know how much they can change, because at the time when you're manic, you don't recognize anything. So for me to get assistance from somebody, you're in denial and you don't want any help. You just want to continue on your little high.
I asked Barb if she's worried about history repeating itself, if a manic episode might derail things again. She says she can't think too far ahead. There's too much in her life that needs fixing right now. But some days are harder than others.
I can't lie to you. Sometimes I just feel like it would be better if God took me. And but I know I'm too strong for that. I know it's not time, but it's hard to get over that kind of thinking. When I lay down, I just think I'm just devastated by everything. And then I try to think back of the days in jail and how well I am here. I'm not behind bars, and I usually talk to Michael twice a day. But it's hard when you talk to somebody and everything's so positive by that person. It's hard because that's a place I want to be in. I want to be out doing the gardening and getting into the dirt. So it's very difficult to accept the position I'm in now.
Reporting this story has been eye-opening. So far, I've gotten 50 emails, about a dozen calls to my desk from people right across the country. What intrigues me most is how compelling the arguments are on every side. The relatives who wish their sick loved ones could be forced to get care, the patient advocates who say that should never happen, that a lack of supports is the real problem, taxpayers who don't want more money going to already expensive systems, and the people working in those systems who say the funding just isn't enough. Months ago, I asked the provincial ministries of health and the Attorney General questions about cases like Barb's. Despite multiple follow-ups, there's been no response. My plan is to keep in touch with Barb, and we'll see what happens from here.